their legislation, they have put in a mix both in terms of experience as well as expertise in order to adjudicate the disputes. The streamlining itself will lead to a lot of speed. So if you're a Sikh company now, you can most likely go to Mumbai and file your petition before the NCLT rather than having to file it in Delhi and wait for answers. You will also have possibly rotation amongst benches, which is always useful because one of the problems with the current administration is that BIFA members are not really exposed that much to other areas of company law in terms of appearances before them. Similarly, company law board members are put into a box where they're only looking at a few sections of the Act. Company judges look at almost every section of the Act. They have the widest experience, but unfortunately they have the least amount of time in which to administer justice. So the delicious mix of all these different tribunals into one will allow not just time and bandwidth in terms of deciding cases, it will also allow for greater amount of expertise, greater amount of depth, and at the same time you will have a situation where that depth will be available at different benches, which is of course one aspect of geography is another aspect in the sense that even with companies, we've noticed that certain states have less companies registered than other states. And this proved the problem in 391 schemes. So you may have, of course, every state allows companies to register. And when you file a scheme of amalgamation under 391, you have to go where the registered office is. The problem is that sometimes the company judge in a state may not have that expertise. But because that company has a registered office there, you would have to appear before him and you would have to explain to him any nuances in the scheme. And this, as you can see, the new act is becoming more modular, more dynamic, more rules-based. So what we're going to see in the future is we're going to see a lot of delegated legislation where rules will drive the process more than simply the legislation, which is the Companies Act. To expect every judge in every high court, every company judge in every high court to be up to date with the rules as they change and to administer justice would also prove very difficult. So in a sense, the NCLT really is a specialized body which is needed for a law which is now becoming so modular with so many definitions inside it. Different kinds of companies are there, different kinds of obligations and liabilities are there. So this would be useful from that point of view to have an NCLT do it. Now we talk about NCLT as if it's almost there. The reality is that there's no clarity yet when the NCLT will be notified. The enabling provisions for the NCLT are already notified, but we need to still know, where the government is going to hire the people who are going to staff it and where the space is going to be found. Presumably, they will find space in the erstwhile CLB, which will now be dissolved. And also they have provisions for sitting judges to also be appointed. So there's no requirement that the judge has to be a retired judge. He can be a sitting judge, and maybe at the end of their tenure, they can be appointed. So I think the search would probably be on for finding them. There are, of course, wrinkles which need to be smoothened, as with any such bold initiative. One of them is transitional provisions. So, of course, the High Court will not completely be bereft of powers. Anybody aggrieved by an order of the CLB still has the power, just like he used to under 10F of the old Act, to be able to appeal to the High Court against that order. So in that sense, the company law administration of the CLB orders would remain. Interestingly, the NCLT cannot hear appeals from CLB. So effectively, you have this peculiar situation where, and we're facing this in one case, in fact, where the judge reserved, the CLB has reserved orders. So if they have reserved the order, that means they have not passed any order. And if NCLT comes out, I mean, of course, maybe not in this case because there's still time for that, but in the future, when as soon as the NCLT is notified, that whole case will have to be reheard afresh because the order was reserved, therefore you cannot be aggrieved by it, therefore you cannot go to High Court. And because the order of CLB cannot be heard, or the matter before CLB cannot be heard by the NCLT, you will have this problem. So you would have to probably have fresh arguments in such cases. Although all pending matters before the CLB will be transferred to the NCLT. So there will be a transfer of pending matters. And of course, you have in the Companies Act certain time-critical matters. For example, 391 is a compromise, effectively. So it's a case not so much of a dispute. It is more of a case where both the parties are willing and the judge is asked to bless the union of the companies, or in the case of a demerger, the scheme. So in such matters, a certain process has been laid down by the courts over time, and that process requires following a chart and doing everything similar to a penalty corner in a hockey match. So in that scenario, the problem you face is that you file with the court a first motion, and after that first motion, the court either dispenses with the creditor and shareholder meeting or calls them. And once those meetings are called, you then have to go ahead and you have to file the second motion with the court. And then notice of that is given to the government. So once this entire mechanism is transferred onto the NCLT, it'll be interesting to see, whether if you have already filed your first motion, if you under the old act, and you already got consent of your shareholders, it'll be interesting to see, maybe the rules have to come out for that, whether you will have to file your second motion before the NCLT, or whether you will face a situation where you will have to go back 3 or 4 months and file the proceedings afresh before the NCLT. So more clarity is needed in that sense, in terms of more rules, and also it would be very interesting to see how much control the government exercises. One aspect of tribunalization is, of course, that when you think about the cases which opposed NCLT, at that time the Supreme Court was probably in a very different mood. The mood there was that we have a collegium system of appointing judges, and nobody gets appointed without consultation with the collegium, either to the Supreme Court or to the High Courts. The wind has changed now. Now, increasingly, the pressure is to have more government involvement, more parliamentary involvement in the appointment of Supreme Court judges themselves. However, of course, the government is bound to the observations of the Supreme Court and required consultation with the Chief Justice for appointment of members and president of the tribunals. But it's interesting that, that the decision in 2010 was when the collegium system in the Supreme Court itself was very robust, and it was considered that the only way to administer justice is if you consult with the Supreme Court in terms of appointing members of any tribunal below it or on its side. So in that sense, you will find, I think, so mentioned class actions, and indeed class actions are something which are practically insane filing before a civil court currently. One of the reasons being they don't have time for anything, right? And they will probably treat it like a real estate matter, and you would never get an answer. Whereas enabling class actions before the NCLT provides for a lot of pressure on companies, because currently the only alternative that you used to have is 397, 398, where you still had a very healthily low threshold, in my opinion, where you could be, a 10% shareholder, and you could just randomly say that this company is being mismanaged or my interests are being oppressed. And the Company Law Board would almost certainly entertain the matter, at least initially, and in some cases they would pass interim orders against the company, which would be damaging. Now, you have a slightly lower threshold in the sense that they have inserted the words unfair prejudice, which perhaps was not so necessary, because in any case in India, unlike in the UK, where the words unfair prejudice were inserted after oppression was held to be the dictionary meaning of oppression by the UK courts, where they said that it has to be really serious oppression for you to bring it in. In India, the courts in any case never used the dictionary meaning. They were not that concerned with what is the level of oppression that you are doing on the minority shareholders. So adding class action suits will also create a lot of stress, I suspect, on companies. There will be a lot of litigation because as it is, anybody with say 10%, 15% shares, if they're not happy, if you don't give them a value, effectively they will go to court against you. So one thing to be considered is how well the NCLT will see through the real intent of a lot of these minority shareholders, which is ultimately to get an exit for their shareholding, to unlock their value. And this is something which was bugging the CLB almost throughout its existence, in the sense that people say that they want the company to be managed better, they want the ship to be righted, but in reality all they want is an exit, all they want is an evaluation. So my suspicion would be that a lot of class action suits would also be filed with that intent, where, and it's a fair issue, because in a private company or in a closely held public company, you practically do not have an exit. So often you will file a case to force the promoters, to force the management to give you an exit. So yeah, so a lot of jurisprudence has to come out. The NCLT would be, of course, well guided by the jurisprudence already evolved by the courts and to some extent by the CLB. And it will be interesting days ahead to see how the NCLT is staffed, how many benches it has, where those benches are, and to also see what is the respect given, because that is ultimately the real proof, the respect given to judgments of the NCLT by other tribunals, by other courts, because a lot of definitions have come in the Companies Act, and NCLT would have to rule on those definitions, and other tribunals and courts would have to consider those rulings. So let's hope for the best as far as the NCLT is concerned. Thank you.